That kid is a fool. It's absurd he's in the same company as me. It's unbelievable. Japan hires people who couldn't even attend university. The elite employees, fixated on academic credentials, couldn't tolerate the new high school graduate hire. Despite it being a welcoming party for the new employees, they repeatedly belittled him. To retaliate against these individuals, I discreetly prepared my counter-offensive. At last, I can vindicate Joseph. I surreptitiously recorded their comments and transmitted the data to headquarters. What ensues is an extraordinary turn of events. I am Charles Smith, 45 years of age. I presently work at the local branch of a prominent cleaning company, All Clean. Our company primarily handles the cleaning of high-rise apartments and has successfully expanded nationwide, establishing itself as a well-recognized firm. I have been employed at this company for nearly 2 decades since graduating from university. Although I secured a position at a major company, I have never worked at headquarters, so I'm far from being considered elite. Nevertheless, I find my work fulfilling. It's that season again when we recruit new graduates. This year, our company decided to increase the number of full-time employees working on cleaning sites. How many applications do you think we'll receive this year? Who knows, the number of applicants seeking labor positions has significantly decreased lately. Recently, office work such as administrative tasks has been popular, and job postings quickly attract numerous applications. However, it's been challenging to gather enough field workers, resulting in a persistent staff shortage. Even for part-time positions, we aren't receiving any applicants. I suppose young people these days are reluctant to engage in this type of work. Due to the popularity of jobs, field work has become less appealing. While discussing this, we received a call from a middle school. Charles, a middle school teacher, wishes to inquire about the full-time position. After my subordinate took the call and spoke briefly, he transferred the phone to me, the person in charge. Hello, this is Charles speaking. How may I assist you? I answered the call and conversed with the teacher. It appeared that a boy about to graduate from middle school was interested in working at our company. Previously, our job postings required at least a high school diploma, but we recently modified the criteria to remove the education requirement, prompting this inquiry. I was somewhat surprised to receive an application from a middle school graduate in this day and age. But we welcomed it and invited him to visit for an observation. After arranging the schedule, the boy came for a visit. He was slightly small, still retaining a hint of youthful innocence, and appeared very serious. Hello, you're Joseph, correct? Pleased to meet you today. Seeing the boy, who was about the age of my son, I couldn't help but feel a paternal instinct. Yes, pleased to meet you. Joseph, appearing somewhat nervous, blushed as he greeted me. I promptly escorted Joseph to the car and headed to the site where the employees were working. In the vehicle, Joseph, still a bit tense, tightly gripped his uniform trousers. Still, it's impressive that you're working at your age. When I was in middle school, I was merely engaging in frivolous activities. I attempted to ease his nerves by making small talk. No, it's not impressive. It's just that we don't have much money, Joseph said, looking slightly dejected. I realized I might have said something inappropriate and tried to change the subject, but Joseph resumed speaking. But I've always wanted to do this job. Whenever I saw people cleaning buildings, I thought it looked cool. Noticing a slight smile on Joseph's face, I felt relieved. Observing his genuine nature, I felt a stronger paternal instinct. It made me reflect on my own age. According to Joseph, he comes from a single-parent household, his father having left when he was very young. Typically, such personal details aren't shared during a company tour. But it seemed Joseph needed someone to listen, so I nodded and attentively heard everything he shared. It appears Joseph has a younger sister and wants to work to fund her college education. I felt tears welling up, but suppressed them and focused on driving. In an era when most kids expect to attend high school, How many young people are willing to sacrifice for their siblings? He likely still wants to enjoy his youth, but he's chosen to work, and I felt a strong desire to support him. After discussing the job details, we arrived at the site. "Richard, the visitor's here." I called out to Richard, the team leader, from a distance. "Charles, I'll be right there." Richard hurried over to us. "You're Joseph, right? Nice to meet you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me." Richard began explaining in detail how to use the high-rise work vehicles, harnesses, and tools. Joseph listened attentively, taking notes in his notebook. After the explanation, we demonstrated how the work is actually performed. We carefully cleaned the windows of the high-rise building from the top floor down. Joseph watched with sparkling eyes, clearly fascinated. Seeing him like that, I thought this kid truly loves this job. Watching Joseph listen to Richard so eagerly made me happy too. Noticing the time, I realized we had spent quite a while there, so I called Joseph and we got back in the car to return to the main office. "Great job. That concludes the tour. How was it?" Joseph answered with a smile. "Thank you for today. I learned a lot. It was fun." All his earlier nervousness had dissipated, and he spoke brightly and clearly. After seeing Joseph off, the company tour for the day ended. "I hope Joseph decides to join us," I thought as I finished the rest of my work. Then the job application period arrived. Oh, Joseph applied to our company. While checking the documents, I found Joseph's resume and couldn't help but exclaim, "Joseph, the kid who came for the tour, right? He seemed like a good kid. That's great." Even my junior colleague was pleased, having taken a liking to Joseph. After successfully passing the interview, Joseph officially became an employee at our company. Being our first hire with only a middle school education, we were concerned about the age gap between him and the other workers. But his sincerity and diligence earned him the affection of his seniors. "By the way, when is the welcome party?" a junior colleague asked me during a break. "It's scheduled for the end of the month. It's been a while since we last had one. Due to a certain virus, we hadn't been able to hold welcome parties in recent years, but we were finally able to organize one again." I was looking forward to it, but my junior colleague said something unsettling. Apparently, this year, employees from the overseas division at headquarters will also be joining us. I frowned at his words. Is that true? If so, that's going to be complicated. Our company has operations overseas, and headquarters has a specialized overseas division. This division includes many elite foreign employees and is known to be quite aloof. Even within the company, why would the people from the overseas division want to attend our welcome party? My junior wondered aloud, looking puzzled. I don't know the details, but apparently they want to create divisions for overseas operations outside of headquarters as well. Our company aims to expand its overseas business and is actively recruiting international talent. They plan to create more departments in the Japanese branches, train employees, and eventually have them work at the overseas branches. This welcome party is likely a stepping stone for that plan. Of course, Joseph would attend the welcome party, but I was concerned about how the elite employees would receive him. The day of the new employee welcome party arrived. I was quite late due to some errands. When I arrived at the venue, expecting a large crowd, I was surprised to find Joseph alone. Wondering what had happened, I approached him. "What's going on? Where is everyone?" Joseph explained that the drunken headquarters staff had trashed the place and left him to clean up while they went to the after party. But our employees were also supposed to be at the welcome party. "Why are you the only one here? Where are our people?" I asked Joseph. He said he volunteered to clean up by himself. "What do you mean? Tell me the whole story." I asked Joseph for more details. As I listened to the full account, I felt a surge of anger. Apparently, a manager from headquarters named Mr. James had harassed Joseph during the welcome party. Mr. James is very elitist and didn't like that Joseph only had a middle school education. He said anyone without a college degree is a disgrace and that I should clean up alone to avoid inconveniencing others. Joseph said this with tears in his eyes. Is that true? I can't believe he said something so terrible. Joseph nodded slightly. Already small in stature, Joseph looked even smaller and more dejected. I struggled to find words to encourage him. You're not an inconvenience. We hired you because we believe you're a valuable asset. Those people at headquarters just don't understand. Though my words were not profound, Joseph nodded repeatedly, tears streaming down his face. I had him sit down and stayed by his side until he calmed down. After a while, when Joseph seemed more composed, I decided to send him home for the day. But there's still cleanup to do. Joseph was concerned about the mess in the venue. Indeed, it was quite a mess, and leaving it as it was would be inconsiderate to the staff. However, making Joseph clean up after all he'd been through seemed too harsh, so I told him I'd clean up by myself. That's not right. I'll help too. Joseph's tone was much firmer than before. Even though I felt guilty for not being there to protect him, I didn't want to make him stay. I told him several times that he could go home, but Joseph silently started cleaning. Reluctantly, I joined him, and though it took a long time, we managed to finish the cleanup together. Fortunately, nothing was broken, so we didn't have to pay for any damages. Thank you, Joseph. I expressed my gratitude to him for helping. No, I'm sorry for losing my composure earlier, Charles. I had forgotten about it during the cleanup, but Joseph seemed a bit regretful for crying in front of me. I told him not to worry about it. But Joseph, feeling a strong sense of responsibility for his family, didn't want to show any weakness. Understanding Joseph's feelings, I just told him to consult me if anything happened, and we called it a day. That day, I realized that despite appearances, Joseph is a strong person with a firm resolve. However, I hope he doesn't hesitate to seek help if he faces such unreasonable treatment again. I was a bit worried about him, fearing that his hard-working nature might cause him to break someday. Before anything else, I wondered what on earth Mr. James was thinking. I couldn't overlook what Mr. James did during the welcome party. Later, I called him out, although I didn't have the authority to do so. I reported the incident to the employee consultation office at headquarters, mentioning Mr. James by name. They said Mr. James and a representative from the consultation office would be present as a third party. But I managed to get him summoned. On the day of the meeting, I entered the conference room to find Mr. James and the consultation office representative already seated. It was suggested that Joseph attend, but he refused, not wanting to face Mr. James, so I went alone. Thank you for coming despite your busy schedule, I began. Mr. James started speaking with a displeased look. What is it? I'm busy. Mr. James seemed unaware of why he was being summoned. Our new employee reported being insulted by you regarding his education. Is this true? I questioned Mr. James. I don't know and I don't remember, he replied dismissively. He reported to me in tears that you said a non-college graduate is a disgrace, causing inconvenience to other employees, and told him to clean up alone. He was left alone at the welcome party to clean up the mess you made. Isn't that true? I pressed him further. Growing irritated, Mr. James snapped back. So what? Cleaning is his job. Don't call me out for something like this. He suddenly became emotional and slammed the table. Had he always used this high-handed attitude to crush his subordinates? However, this incident didn't occur during work hours but at a welcome party. He should have been celebrated, not ostracized for being a middle school graduate. It's no different from middle school bullying, is it? I calmly countered Mr. James's outburst. Let's leave it here for today. The consultation office representative, who had been present, stepped in to interrupt the discussion. I thought the meeting was over, but Mr. James made an outrageous statement. That kid is an idiot. It's ridiculous he's in the same company as me. It's crazy hires people who can't even go to college." He said this as he slammed the door and left the room. Another employee quickly followed him out. I was stunned that someone like him actually existed. Mr. James appeared older than me, yet he had the nerve to say such things to someone young enough to be his son. Regardless of his prestigious degree, it was surprising he'd come this far with such a poor character. His obsession with academic credentials only highlighted how empty he was inside. I found myself pitying him. However, more importantly, I was secretly pleased that my preparations for a counterattack were complete. Finally, I can defend Joseph. Unaware of this, Mr. James returned to headquarters, oblivious to the consequences awaiting him. I couldn't help but feel a sense of justice at the thought of his eventual accountability, even though it might seem vindictive. Although the meeting ended formally without any real penalties for Mr. James, I had anticipated this. I had recorded the entire conversation with a voice recorder, preserving all of Mr. James's statements as evidence. That was my plan. I deliberately provoked Mr. James to reveal his true nature. Listening back to the recording, it was appalling. Not only did it capture his insults towards Joseph, but there were also several ethically questionable statements. If such a recording leaked from a well-known company aiming for global expansion, it would cause significant repercussions. I didn't release it to social media or the media. Instead, I sent the recording directly to headquarters. A few hours after I sent the recording, our branch received a call. They said that Mr. James and his superior would come to our branch immediately to apologize to Joseph in person. When I told Joseph about this, he agreed to accept the apology, and thus he would face Mr. James again. On the day, as soon as Mr. James and his manager arrived, they apologized deeply to Joseph. What? Joseph looked confused, seeing two grown men apologizing to him. We sincerely apologize for what happened. We're very sorry. Seeing two older men apologizing to a young man was such a surreal sight that I almost burst out laughing but held it in. My subordinate made very inappropriate remarks and caused you discomfort, Mr. Joseph. We are truly sorry. He will be duly reprimanded. The boss seemed very anxious, likely fearing the release of the recording. On the other hand, Mr. James appeared less contrite, clearly only there because his boss had reprimanded him. Please, raise your heads, kind Joseph said to them, but I could see that Mr. James hadn't reflected enough on his actions. Mr. James, you seem to have something to say. Is there an issue? I asked Mr. James, who looked displeased. Nothing, he replied sullenly, but I wasn't about to let him leave it at that, so I initiated another plan. However, you look dissatisfied. Have we said anything incorrect? Mr. James sighed in annoyance. Please don't sigh. We're just trying to confirm the facts with you. Oh, by the way, we have a video of the welcome party from one of our employees. Shall we review it together? Mr. James's expression darkened immediately. After the chaotic welcome party, I had spoken with everyone from our branch who attended to understand what had happened. One employee had filmed Mr. James and his subordinates causing a disturbance while intoxicated. Seeing Mr. James's reaction, it was clear his memory of that night had come rushing back. Ignoring Mr. James's reaction, I played the video. The video showed various clips of Mr. James spilling beer, throwing things, and trying to force other intoxicated employees to drink more. The entire video was about 30 minutes long, and as it played, I could see the faces of both Mr. James and his boss getting paler. It wasn't just insults towards Joseph. Your behavior at the welcome party was completely unacceptable for a professional. This was a welcome party for new employees who would want to be welcomed by such behavior. Mr. James, is this true? Mr. James's boss looked at him coldly. I don't remember. It seemed he was too intoxicated to recall much, but the person in the video was undeniably Mr. James. You called Joseph a disgrace, but isn't it far more disgraceful for an adult to act like this? What did you learn in college? As I said this, Mr. James blushed and looked down. Has this video already been leaked on social media? Mr. James's boss was clearly worried about the video's release. Don't worry, I have instructed the employee who filmed it not to share it externally yet. Thank you, but what do you mean by yet? The boss looked relieved for a moment, but then became anxious again. Depending on Mr. James's attitude and the consequences he faces, it might not be long before this video is made public. At my words, Mr. James started sweating profusely and collapsed to the ground. I'm sorry. I'll never do something like this again. Please, keep this a secret. Forgive me. He apologized deeply. With the recording and this video, his career and possibly his life would be over if they were leaked. A deep apologizing was the least he could do. It's too late for that. You may have gotten away with it before, but not this time. I will report everything to higher-ups, and if the company does nothing, the public will find out. No, please. Mr. James looked utterly defeated. This is your own doing. Acting however you wanted, harassing young employees. Aren't you ashamed? And this isn't the first time, is it? His actions were a result of his arrogance, and it wouldn't be surprising if worse behavior came to light. Thinking of all the people who likely suffered under him, an apology alone wouldn't suffice. The company's decision to protect him just because he was an elite was also problematic. I will report this to higher-ups, and you can expect a decision on your punishment soon. Depending on the severity, we will take appropriate action. Goodbye. No, I'll never do it again, please. I won't be able to stay in Japan. Mr. James feared having to leave Japan after working so hard to rise in his career. At the end, he clung to me, pleading, but it didn't matter. With the video in our possession, the company would have to take appropriate action. Otherwise, the company's reputation would be severely damaged. Instead of worrying about whether you can stay in Japan, you should reflect on what you've done. It's time you realized your mistakes. Why is this happening to me? Mr. James pounded the ground in frustration. Despite my frustration with his continued self-interest, I made sure to warn him. If something like this happens again, consider your career over. Apparently, I had a very intimidating expression, as Mr. James looked at me like a frightened kitten. I hoped this incident would lead to proper consequences for Mr. James and others behaving similarly, and that Mr. James would reflect on his actions. Joseph and I left the room, leaving Mr. James and his boss behind. Thank you, Charles. As soon as we left the room, Joseph apologized to me. Don't mention it. I just did what was right. Joseph wiped away his tears with his sleeve and started speaking again. If it weren't for you, Charles, I don't know if I could have continued working. I know I shouldn't let something like this get to me. It seemed Joseph felt a strong pressure to be the responsible one for his family and had lost some confidence because of this incident. Joseph, it's okay to rely on others when you're having a hard time. You're still very young. There will be many tough times ahead, but you are never alone. As I said this, Joseph's eyes filled with tears again. Since my father is not around, I know I have to step up and be responsible for my family, but I gently interrupted him. Relying on someone isn't a bad thing. If you're struggling, come talk to me anytime. Everyone grows up with help and experiences from others. Even the most impressive people didn't get there alone. I'm sure you'll become a fine adult, Joseph. I said this, lightly patting Joseph on the shoulder. Later, the higher-ups discussed Mr. James's punishment. He had been selected from an overseas branch to work at the Japanese headquarters, but was now forcibly sent back to his original branch. Having graduated from a prestigious university and been on a successful career path, this incident was a severe blow to him. It is highly unlikely for Mr. James to return to Japan. This incident reminded me that people should always remain humble. I understand feeling proud of one's academic achievements, but it becomes meaningless if it leads to arrogance. I hope that, because of this incident, Our company will no longer have employees who are unfairly treated due to their educational background. As expected, Mr. James had previously caused similar problems, but no one had reported him, and everyone turned a blind eye. After this incident came to light, there were numerous complaints against Mr. James. Of course, his problematic behavior and return were communicated to the overseas branch. It's easy to imagine the cold reception he'll receive from his colleagues there. The company should also ensure that higher-ups are educated to protect vulnerable employees like Joseph before such incidents occur. While I noticed Joseph's plight by chance, it doesn't change the fact that other employees at our branch ignored what was happening. Academic background is important, but once hired, every employee is a valuable part of the company. This incident made me realize we need to ensure our employees know to protect their colleagues in such situations. Since then, Joseph has been doing well and seems to enjoy his work every day. I hope that when Joseph has juniors, he will not only guide them, but also protect them. I also want to continue supporting young people like Joseph, who work hard for their families. And as a hiring manager, I will strive to focus on a person's character rather than just their academic background. Why did you go to such lengths for Joseph, Charles? I want to protect my colleagues too, but I'm not sure if I could go that far. It felt like you were almost going against the company. A junior colleague asked me curiously. Well, you see, my motivation wasn't just a sense of justice. Actually, I was supposed to have a son about the same age as Joseph. My wife and I had a baby boy soon after we got married, but he was born with a weak constitution and passed away shortly after birth. For a while, my wife and I were deeply depressed. We blamed ourselves, wondering what we had done wrong. I remember not having the energy to do anything, including work. Our son spent his short life in an incubator, and when we were told he had little time left, my wife and I cried together, holding him. He looked like an angel. Watching him grow weaker every day, I constantly wished he could be healthy, even if it meant giving my life for his. If I could have, I would have taken his place. I dreamed of a reality where our son was happily laughing with my wife. But that dream never came true, and our son passed away a few weeks after birth. His brief but valiant life was a miraculous time for my wife and me. The short time we spent with him was never wasted. Even in that short period, it felt like he taught us many things. We decided to live our lives to the fullest, in gratitude and honor of our son's memory. We were blessed with 2 daughters and are now living happily. But sometimes when I see boys around my son's age, I can't help but think back to those days. I wonder what my son would be doing now if he were alive. What would he have liked? What would he have disliked? And what dreams would he have had? I can't help but think about these things. When I saw Joseph, I thought that if my son were alive, he would be about Joseph's age, and I saw my son in him. When I first heard that Joseph didn't have a father, I couldn't suppress my paternal instinct to protect him. I'm sure I got so passionate about this because I felt Joseph was like a son to me. If I were a father, and my son was treated like this at work because of his academic background, I couldn't stay silent. It might have been meddlesome, but I felt it was my duty to protect Joseph, who works hard for his family instead of going to high school. Joseph said he didn't have a father, and I thought maybe I could be that figure for him. There's no blood connection between us, but I felt like I could be a father to him in a small way. Since I couldn't see my own son grow up, I will watch over Joseph as he grows,